here full of energy and thoughts and experience, and that's why it's exciting, and that's why there's so much going on, and it's wonderful to be a part of this. Jim is someone who resonates with that same kind of energy and excitement and creativity and passion and dedication. I've seen him in a few conferences. He probably doesn't even know me. But I saw him yesterday, as you did here too, as well, I think. But if you read his bio, I'm not going to read it to you. You can all read his bio on the website, and also the little introduction for his session yesterday. He's done a lot of very creative things, very creative and risky, I would say. And I think that's the kind of thinking that we need to solve the problems that plague our world today. We need a different kind of thinking than the thinking that got us into this mess. So I have absolutely no idea what Jim's going to talk about now, and I'm sure he's quite able to handle the flow and flexibility and dynamics that are going to erupt here momentarily, I think. So, Jim, I'm going to pass it over to you, and you have so much you can talk about that can add to this discussion or take it in a different direction. And I know you're capable of handling that. So thank you very, very much for joining us. And here we go, Jim.
Well, that's no pressure. So just so we're all clear on time, I've got to be out of this space at noon where I am, so I have about a half hour, and in a way, I want to just follow up on what was just said by June, because that was really powerful. And if we get to the question of like, why are we doing this? Or Liz, you just mentioned my age, because I've been remarking that I'm old. I mean, I'm not old, I'm young, but relative to the people whose voices we are amplifying, I am getting old. Jordan, who shared the stage, I guess you could call it, with me yesterday, she's like 19. She was someone who went to school, left, became an unschooler. Walker, who introduced me, he's like 20. Catherine Farr, who co-authored the Academia Manifesto, she's maybe 17. So these are the voices that that are illegal. They legally don't have an opportunity to have a voice. So we are then tasked with kind of, what do they want? What are they thinking? What do they not like? We're then tasked with trying to figure out how to create new games for them, so to speak. So like, I call it games because that's something that I've been learning a lot about lately, because I created the app Leave School, which is basically an audiobook teaching young people how to pursue self-directed learning. So I was like, all right, well, that's great. How do I entice them? How do I engage them more? So me and a teen from India that listened to that audiobook, we made a game called 21 Days as a way to engage. And so we were kind of finding these different ways to engage with young people through games, because playing is non-coercive, but it takes a lot of energy and a lot of heart and a lot of dedication to create a game that also teaches people things. It takes so much energy to do both at once. And I don't mean to make an educational game. I mean to make a game that people play because they love to play it, and that you have subversively put educational things into. That takes so much energy. But that is kind of the only way to handle these heady situations that are really, we're talking about trauma and control and government systems that have been put in place to manipulate the population. Like, this is heavy stuff. This is heavy shit, right? To even have these conversations in front of a bunch of elementary school kids, for there to be 10-year-olds listening in on us adults talking about how we believe that these systems are damaging and destroying children. And then meanwhile, we're forcing kids to go. I mean, imagine being a 10-year-old listening in on all of us talking about this while your parents are making you go to school. Like, this is pretty heady stuff. And so through games And play and comedy is the way that I've found to handle these delicate situations. But we're adults here. So there's two things that I do want to bring up which feel very deliberate. Um, One of them has to do with mental health. I was really touched yesterday when Walker introduced me and mentioned that my app was an app about, youth wellness. I was like, shit, I thought I made an audiobook on how to become a self-directed learner. This guy called it a wellness guide. Wow. And I don't see anywhere in our school system that we're actually catering to people's mental health. All we do is test them on, if we really cared about it, we'd be testing them on it, I guess, or something like that. And God, the screening that we've done with children and labeling them and diagnosing, like please don't take this out of context. Do not ever think that I'm suggesting we ramp up the teen screen program from the early 2000s again. Like, please don't start testing people's mental health. Just let them be. Just let them be. But it sort of feels deliberate, because if people cared about it, they would have spent a lot more money catering to people's mental health. And I mean, I testified at a legislative hearing in Connecticut about their mental health system. And I said, hey, you guys are having this hearing because a person leaked footage of some really bad stuff going on in your mental health facilities. And now you've spent 3 years investigating it. Like, I'm sorry to say that this is not a bug. This is a feature of your system. That's why instead of fixing the problem, you've spent 3 years having a task force look into it. Like, you're the state investigating the state. Come on, this is almost a charade here. And it was terrifying to say it, but some of these things feel deliberate. And this is oppression. This is serious, being a white kid that grew up in the suburbs. I mean, a lot of the stuff you were talking about manufacturing a racist, like shit. Of course I grew up. I mean, yeah, I don't know, prejudice. Absolutely. I was groomed to be prejudiced. I don't know about, the word racism suggests that one is superior to the other. I don't think I was ever groomed that way. And frankly, everything I've seen suggests that people of color are far more talented than white people at basically everything. But more prejudice and fear. There's a fear created, like, oh, be afraid of them. Be afraid of people that are different. That is like groomed and instilled. And race just becomes one element of that. And it's serious. And Richard talks about mental health, and like, yeah, I do believe mental health is a root of this stuff. But you also need food, and you need shelter, and you need fresh water. And I don't give a shit how your mental health is. If you don't have those things, we can't talk about your mental health. And for some reason, if you look at our education system, nobody's ever taught how to make money. And in my audiobook, I mean, I wrote it, so I can't take the words back, but I look at when our school system was created, and I give those guys a pass. I say, hey, you know what? Maybe at the time we needed a nation of factory workers and, robot people. Maybe we needed that. And that was the call at the time, and that these were well-intentioned people. I gave them a pass because, I don't know them. I don't know why, guys like Rockefeller did the things they did. I don't know these guys. But the fact that entrepreneurship in sales or marketing and in how to make money, come on, how is that not a core part of this education system that was designed by billionaires? That's not an afterthought. Like, that's clearly by design. And so, yes, I do think the mental health side of things is critical, and that young people are being destroyed. They're being diagnosed and drugged, and the school to prison pipeline, like, all that's real. I don't know how to fix any of that shit. But if we can give young people the resources to educate themselves and even earn some money and make a living, there's liberation through being able to feed yourself and put a roof over your head. That is the only way that I'm 35. I'm still not out of the clutches of the mental health system. I just had a conservatorship slapped on me 2 weeks ago in the state of Connecticut. I had to leave the state. I signed a lease and decided to like, I guess grow up or something and like be close to family and all that. Next thing you know, the government, through the, loving intentions of family, are trying to seize my assets and I have to leave the state. That's not exactly family friendly. And I'm not a child. I'm 35 freaking years old. But these are the consequences of, a system that was designed for all of these things that have happened to me. And I'm supposed to be some sort of success story of the education system. And I'm a white dude. So, like I told the Connecticut Legislative Task Force of their mental health system, if y'all have done this shit to me, and I'm supposed to be an example of like getting the best quality of care or the best quality of education, and I'm sitting here saying like you harmed me maybe irreparably, whatever the word is. And I'm supposed to be like this most satisfied customer you've got. If that's what I'm saying, what are the people at the bottom experiencing who don't get a voice? And if they speak up, then they get told, oh, you're just complaining because you're poor. Or to all these students, they get told, oh, you're complaining because you're young. It's the same dismissive bullshit. Or I get dismissed, oh, you're a crazy person. So my opinion has less validity because somebody at some point in time decided that they thought I was crazy because they didn't understand what I was saying, or honestly, because they didn't fucking deserve to know what I was thinking. They felt they did, and I didn't. So because I didn't feel like being honest with some dude with a white lab coat, now my word is not credible because these kids don't have the right to vote. Their word's not credible. If you're in prison for a felony, you can't vote. Your word's not credible. Like there's all these voices, a lot of voices that, and supposedly a democratic country, don't have a voice. And I really want to believe there's well-intentioned people and that this is not deliberate. But damn, it's starting to feel like this shit's deliberate. So I don't know. Sorry, I've been blabbing enough. But what June said was really powerful, and I think it just kind of redirected anything I ever thought I was going to come in here and say today.
I kind of thought you might, Jim, because it was powerful. There's one comment in the chat here. Maybe you want to address that. How do we leverage what we know and the existing resources about mental health to support our kids in the present systems?
Well, I mean, what you're saying at the very end of that question is, how do we leverage everything we know to support these kids in the present systems? What if the systems we have, forget, any conspiracy theory about why they suck. Let's just say that we're agreeing that they're not good enough. We People deserve better. Let's be positive. Let's just say we believe young people deserve better. I think everyone can get on board with that. When I've given talks to parents, I've often said like, hey, what if we look at the problem as how do we personalize learning? That's something that people can get on board with. You mentioned the word unschooling and people walk out or they throw tomatoes, but hey, how do we personalize learning? How do we give young people something better than what we had? Yeah, that's our job. I think, right, is to take whatever was given us and make it better for the next people. And I feel like the approach that our school system took was somebody said, hey, we've got, let's say, 20 million kids, 30 million kids. We need to have them consumed all day so the parents can work, and we need to educate the kids. So let's design a system for 20 million, 30 million kids. And if you asked me to do that, I'd probably give you something like school, and it would eventually turn into this control system. But if instead you said, hey, what's the best experience that an individual could have, like one person? And then you designed what would that be? And you said, hey, how do we make it so that 20 to 30 million young people can have that experience? Now you've got a totally different question. You haven't even really gotten into budgetary things yet because originally, if you say to me, we got 20 million kids, we got to educate them, immediately I'm like, oh my God, what's this going to cost? We need buildings, we need, all these things. But if you just say, hey, what's one person's experience? I mean, there are so many unschoolers, people at democratic free schools, who've been so incredibly resourceful financially. Some of them come from well-to-do families, some of them are children of single moms. But in terms of like actual dollars spent, I mean, they're incredibly resourceful because why not be? You just learn to explore and go after things. And so I don't think the cost is nearly as much as people would imagine from that originally posed problem of how do we take 20 million kids and give them all this uniform
Almost,
education.
Alex, I need you. It's not 12 yet.
So, anyways, the present systems, I don't think our present systems are designed for that. And I hate to be that guy that says, like, let's build something better, let's leave. I think. So, this question says, does this go back to support families? Well, like, all right, if you're a family right now, is the system that you are part of giving you what you want? Are you sitting around waiting for these people to change for you? Are you sitting back, pissed off, complaining that the teacher's not doing this or that the school board's doing that? And like, yeah, go to your school board, go for it. Try to get him to do something. Good luck. Uh, or do you just say, hey, these are my goddamn kids. I want to raise them and educate them. They should be thriving right now. Instead, they're locked on a remote controlled schooling that is an inadequate education when they could be getting much better. I mean, it's up to, the child and the family to make a decision for themselves. So to support families, I'm just saying, make your own decisions. Don't feel, it's like the poster or the signs that I made for people's yard. Like, it's okay to leave school. My book is titled Leave School because it's shorter and it's catchy, but if I'm being a little more gentle, like, it's okay to leave. So if you feel like right now in this present moment, and we know the winter's just going to get worse, right? In terms of COVID and control, like, that in this moment right now, it's dog shit. So what is holding anybody back from saying, hey, we're taking winter off? We're going to do our own thing and explore for 3 or 4 or 5 months. Maybe build some snowmen, maybe explore nature a little bit. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to pursue what this young person's interested in, because whatever they're going to have in their remote controlled school all winter is going to be dog shit. And if you want to go back to it, that's fine. But I mean, what does your family want? So someone says, again, how does this go back to support families? I don't know your family. What do you want? Do you feel like you are locked into a school because you're ashamed of what your neighbors will think if you leave? Are you nervous about your kid's future because, oh my God, if they're gone for a few months? Like, come on, there's so many young people thriving without school all over the world. And you're thinking that your kid's sitting on a laptop in the living room at best with a few other people doing remote controlled school. Is that how you want to live your life? Or is that how you think people can actually learn best? Like, you try doing that as a parent. Good luck. Good luck. Have a good day. Have a good day. Do that for one day. You go do for one day what these kids do every day. You go do it for one day. I dare you to do it. I fucking dare you. You won't do it. It's that bad. So sorry for a little aggressive, but like, I dare you to go do what these kids do for a day. And you don't even have the pressure of like your whole life feeling like, oh my God, everything is at stake if I don't get a grade on this thing. And you don't even have that pressure. I'm just saying, go sit in the class as an adult you can use the bathroom whenever you want. Just go sit there bored as hell like they do every day. Go do that shit for one day. I
Could
dare you to
I?
do it.
Oh, could I say something for a moment, Jim? I think
Sure,
that
sure.
that is truly good advice. That if students are being traumatized at their school and they are being subjected to unacceptable behaviors and unacceptable limitations, that leaving school is definitely an option. And lived experience and life experience are also valuable education tools and education skills. What we do at the National Collaboration for Youth Mental Health is we have action plans for students, parents, and communities, as well as schools. And everyone knows that they have an individualized education plan for students when students have what they call a learning disability, which I really don't believe in. Um, we believe in youth mental health plans because the reason our students aren't succeeding is because of trauma and these traumatic experiences that are oppressive and dehumanizing in some schools. So instead of an IEP or in conjunction with an IEP, we believe in youth mental health plans that are put together with the student and all of the parties, most importantly, the parents and the caregivers, to decide what does your child need to heal from this traumatic experience that oppressed them and dehumanized them and made them feel badly, that impacted their self-esteem. Do they need counseling? Do they need a safe space? Do they need someone to talk to, a peer? What do they need to heal and be able to believe that they can succeed at school, whatever that school looks like? So I'm an advocate for youth mental health plans, and that there's an intersectionality between trauma, between discrimination, between mental health, and between success.
I want to, so I want to say that I love the what sounds like a great intention. But if you told me at 15 that you wanted me to sit down and make a mental health plan with me and my family, I'd tell you the same shit that I told that person that tried to get me to do that at 22. And I won't repeat what I said to them because it wasn't gentle. I mean, are we forcing our children, like a mental health plan for a 15-year-old? Okay, let me throw it in my backpack with the rest of my assignments. Come on, like how are we living life? This is this, and I'm not trying to disregard the trauma that people have gone through, but are we turning life into this manufactured? Now my mental health has a curriculum too. Ah, shit. Okay. Do I stay till 3 every day at school now, or are all my periods shortened by 5 minutes so we can squeeze a mental health period at the end of the day? Like, how exactly, how much should it be, one period a day? Is that, I mean, because some kids, is there going to be levels of level 1, level 2, level 3 of mental health? How exactly are we structuring our mental health allocation for everybody? Is there a certification program to become a mental health teacher? Is it going to be one of these things where, like, we really want to have all our mental health teachers be certified professional mental health people, but because we have shortages, we will have laws that say that, like, the chemistry teacher, because they understand science, they can teach 1 period of mental health a day and give our. How are we regimenting this in programming all of this shit? Like, we are taking what the problem was and trying to use that to solve the problem. Like, more shit is not the problem when you're drowning in shit. Like, I don't mean, I'm glad I can't see who was talking because I feel bad that I'm shitting all over what you just said. But in a way, that's the problem, is we're trying to do more. We're trying to, like, hey, kids' mental health sucks. Let's add some stuff on top of this to fix the mental health. Like, we need to ease the brakes a bit. I mean, I bet you at none of the Sudbury schools do they have mental health plans that every kid has to take, or mental health counsel. I mean, maybe they do, but they choose it. It's their decision. So much of this is like adults trying to, like, add more stuff. And I don't mean to, like, shit on anyone's fucking life work and stuff. Like, I mean, dude, not to say the things that I've been doing have been successful, but I could tell you the stuff that has failed and has not worked. And I could tell you the stuff that's traumatized me. Locking me in a room with some professionals in my family so I can make a plan on how I can get my life together or get my mental health in check. Dude, please no. I've left this state as an adult because of these rooms. As a child, I had no choice. Now at least I can make a living. I can get in my car. I can drive. I can empty my bank account, and I can leave the state before they can take my shit. If I'm a child, I don't have any of those options. I don't have my own food, my own shelter, my own water. I have none of those resources if I'm a child. Honestly, most adults don't have the flexibility that I have to be able to just pack up their shit and go to another state if the state's government is trying to take their assets or lock them up somewhere. Most people don't have that. And sure as hell, kids don't have those resources. And I've met a lot of these kids through the peer unschooling network who are in dire situations. They can't relocate, they can't move. 15-year-old kids trying to seek emancipation from their parents because they want to read books. They want to read books that they like. And the school tells them, you got to read the books we want you to. And these badass kids are saying, hey, what you're doing is wrong. I want to read these books that I enjoy, and you're forcing me to read these other books saying it's better for my attitude and my well-being and my future and my career and my mental health. What if I don't give a fuck about any of those things? I just like to read books. Is that okay? Whose permission does a child need to read a goddamn book in the afternoon if they want to, just because they like to read a fucking book? They need a permission slip to go out of the room into the hallway. They got to check in with the hall pass monitor, maybe go to the library. Is the library unlocked during this period? Are books accessible? These kids just want to read a book, and they got to go to court to get emancipated from their parents. Why are we putting this many barriers in front of a child that just wants to read a book? I mean, this shit feels deliberate to me at this stage when kids are getting that serious about just wanting to read some books. It doesn't even matter what the book is. What is this? Yes, well, there's a specific example of a girl that I know that is going through that process. I'm not going to name. Well, she's published under an alias, so you can go read on the ASDI website. There's a girl, Jane. She's written publicly. There's some stories of people that they don't go public. Some people keep their names secret and their stories secret. Some people publish under an alias. I mean, I sort of started doing comedy under an alias, but that didn't last long. So like Jane has written publicly, though I haven't heard from her in a little while. That's the mystery of like when I run this website, you hear about shit, and man, sometimes these kids disappear and you don't know where they ended up. You just hope for the best. I mean, I remember we had a guest on Youth on Subjects of the World. I didn't know this about them. They just seemed like a bright, creative young person. Turns out they were like homeless and on the run. I had no idea until we did a show on homelessness and they told their story. Yeah. 6 months later, that teen, their younger sibling reaches out saying, hey, we're looking for so-and-so. These are real young people's lives out there that the system has dropped the ball repeatedly on. And they can't wait around for the system to change. They got to take shit into their own hands and own their lives. And so like these young people that have like fought, these are pioneers. Like these are like leaders. These are leaders, and we are like shaming them for being innovators and pioneers and fighters. And we should be embracing them and nurturing them and praising them. It's embarrassing.
Jim, I know you have to go, and I see Shawnee has her hand up, and I think maybe Heather was going to add something too. Shawnee, do you want to go and ask your question, or?
Sorry, I bumped that by accident, but I gotta say, Jim, what I'm hearing is exactly what I've been living with my kids for 28 years. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, my heart goes out to you.
And Jim, let me quickly comment that in all these 3 days, in your own language, I fucking liked you, yeah. I liked you a lot.
Sorry, I get a little heated when we talk about this stuff, and there's a part of me that's like, no, we should remain civil, and then there's another part of me that's like, well, like I don't want to be doing this on a Sunday morning. I mean, I enjoy this work, but I'd like all this stuff I do in mental health and education. Like I would so love to go out of business. I would love to not, like, I hate that we call these things like alternative education and alternative mental health, because as long as we call these things alternatives, it's always going to be an alternative. And we're going to be stuck doing this on Saturday and Sunday morning. But if this just became at least equal and or accessible or something, we could not feel like we're fighting a war out here. We're trying to end one. Sorry, it's a very important choice of words. We are trying to end a war, not looking to start one or continue one. Trying to end one.
Well, I really want to fucking be associated with you. And
Let me give you my email.
I'll leave my mail ID here. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Jim, I enjoyed your program. Thank you.
Jim, I appreciate what you're saying about alternative learning. I've been saying that for a long time. I call it authentic learning. The kind of learning.
Yeah.
Authentic learning. And if you're such an authentic guy, and we've had a great opportunity here to hear your authentic story. So thank you for bringing your authentic self to this conversation. In respect of Jim's hard here in 5 minutes, anybody else want to ask a question, make a comment, share an insight?
Yeah, can I ask a question? I have my hand up. Jim, I guess my question is, how do we reach parents who are your age or slightly older to begin shifting how they interact with their children as preschoolers, babies, so they have
So
agents,
that's a good question. Yeah.
Don't wait.
So I would say look at what Blake Bowles has started doing,
I know
because
Blake,
he just shifted his attention towards that demographic, and he just published a book called Parents, Why Are You Still Sending Your Kids to School?
Yeah,
and so I think that he followed probably a similar thought process that I did of, like, working with younger people, thinking that, those are the ones that you want to empower and give a voice to and have be the strength of this. And maybe he shifted to parents because he saw that maybe they were really the true decision makers and gatekeepers of young people's education. And so I think I don't know if this was his exact thought process, but he probably said, hey, you need to educate parents on this stuff. And me, I don't have kids, so I've often felt a little like, maybe I'm not the right person to be telling someone how to raise their kids. Something about it just doesn't feel appropriate for me to do. But I do feel like I can at least, speak to teens and young adults, like college age students and people in their 20s, like kind of that age range about, hey, you want to make a living, you want to be able to sustain yourself and own your life, and be a good person in the process, not screw people over in order to get there, type of thing. I think a lot of us, there's a kid who I started mentoring a little bit on web development. He wants to be successful. All right, what's that mean? He's like, hey, I just want to be able to pay my bills. I want to have a car. He doesn't have a car. He's like, I want to have an apartment maybe. He's like, I'm fine living with my mom still. He's like, but I want to have a car and be able to eat out at a restaurant without being worried. Okay, man, that's cool. If that's your goal, that's your goal. And I mean, he'll be able to do that within a year. And then what? Now what do you want to do? But when someone gets to choose their goals and then pursue them without restraint, that's awesome. But I remember being in school and someone else is telling me what the goal is every week. Someone else is handing me the assignment. And I mean, yeah, there was a nice dangled carrot that I got a lot of praise for getting good grades. And I was promised oh, if you keep doing this, you get a good job and all that. I mean, it's not all, I'm sure I've reaped a lot of benefits of all the privilege that I grew up with. Like I say, every morning I bathe in the springs of privilege, and then I soak in a shower of shame afterwards. I've got this weird upbringing that's kind of people talk about having a trust fund. I don't have it. And I wish I had a trust fund. I got a don't trust fund. I was just grown up, don't trust anybody. You have to do everything yourself, because if you can't trust anybody, and you have to overcome, even the stuff with the mental health system. It was in my mind, it was only through being a sole proprietor, not even having business partners. Only if I'm a sole proprietor owning my own business and my own stuff can then nobody try to lock me up saying I'm a crazy person. And even then they just try, I mean, they didn't try to lock me up. They tried to seize my assets. I left the state before they could try anymore. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, this is crazy. It's the life. People shouldn't have to go through the shit I'm going through. Nobody should have to experience this stuff. Yeah. And hopefully they won't if we do our job. What's up, Sid? I see you down there, Sydney.
And then
I just wanted to support you were saying, Jim, because the evidence from self-directed communities is that kids who follow their interests and their passions end up being so good at what they do, they don't have a hard time making a living.
Yeah,
so they don't even have to have the goal of having a car. They just have to do what they want to do. And then people say, hey, you're so good at this, come work for me.
Good point, Sydney. Absolutely.
I see there's one question that was in the chat right before I go. It says, what would you say to people who just don't have the condition to take kids out of school, who are stuck in the system? And then I would say, like, what does it mean to have the condition? I don't know what that means. I think that, like, yeah, I've met rich people that do unschooling. I've met poor people that do it. People just find a way to prioritize what needs to be prioritized. And that being said, I'm not taking away from the fact, like, people need food, shelter, water. Like, there are resources that we need everyone to have access to before they can even, like, really think about their education. But some families I've met really prioritize developing their life so that they can pursue this even as a family. I mean, I went through all that, but I think of myself as a self-directed learner. And then it says, what about the families that don't care about their children? Tell them to call me and we can chat. Have the family, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. When you're telling me the families that don't care about their children, like, what do you want me to do about that in terms of a school system? If you're telling me that the purpose of school is to be some sort of a protective daycare for, because there's some abusive parents out there, I'm like, is that the responsibility of a school system and an education system? Is that what we are building when we're or is policing parental child abuse a totally separate thing that we should be not entangling because we're fucking up our schools and our education when we're trying to turn? Like, I'm a physics teacher and I love physics. I love talking about it. Am I now all of a sudden turning myself into some police force for police child brutality that might be happening at home? Certainly, if I know that something's going on, I'm going to step in and do something. But how are we getting entangled in ways?
I know you have to go, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you so very, very much.
Okay, cool.
Are you able to come back for the brainstorming session at 2 at all?
It's at 2. I have a meeting at 3 that I really need to, like, prepare for mentally. But if you guys are going to be on this thing at 2, I might be able to pop on for a little bit.
That would be great. Thank you very much. You've certainly given us some humor, some new vocabulary for some of us in other parts of the world. And
Sorry.
I have Irish heritage, so I'm just going to say that was feckin' great.